So without further ado, let me start. So I will start off with a recap of what we my colleague Ewan spoke to you guys about back 2 weeks ago, right? So basically today, our applications is the core of our experience today. Everything that we do from in our daily lives revolves around our smart devices, right? So and the applications that we are using today, or getting out to the market for our customers, are becoming more and more complex, right? It used to be a very simple application with one backend server, but with the proliferation of APIs, right? Yeah, the applications are the threat vectors have actually increased a lot. Okay, so this digital experience, to actually provide a very good digital experience, right, you will probably have a mixture of legacy and modern applications, and all these applications are now spanned across different environments, from your on-premise data centers to public cloud, hyperscalers, and to some extent people are looking into delivering the app even closer to the users via edge computing itself, right? So this, right, as I mentioned earlier, your risk complexity is actually increasing because of the different environments that your application now resides. In the good old days, it used to always be within your data center, within your control. But as you adopt your cloud, go into public cloud, there will be additional security considerations because of the shared responsibility model between the customers as well as the cloud providers themselves. Okay, so as you can see, right, managing your internal data centers is already something that is overloading the teams yourself, the operations team, right? And right now, as you multiply your environments, you are basically that risk and complexity is actually going to be multiplied, because there's going to be things like new skill sets that you need to adopt and learn. Okay, so at the same time as well, a lot of the providers today, they have what they term as a cloud native services. But if we peel deeper under the onion, right, it's native to their platform itself. So how do we then be able to actually have a single unified policy that can be pushed into all these different environments, right? So you can address your compliance, your audits, your the security posture that you have built, um, that you can build once and cookie cut it and reuse it across the different environments, right? So from a takeaway from part one is where my colleague shared with you, in terms of the seamless API discovery, right? Enforcing positive and negative security for the APIs, via the API discovery, you will be able to see what sort of APIs are there, what sort of APIs are the production APIs, and what are the APIs which are actually the shadow APIs, right? So, sometimes a developer or might have fired up a new API for testing and forgot to decom, right? So those are the things that we would be able to discover, and we can then move into a positive model where we can say that, okay, I only allow what is good traffic to come in, instead of trying to block out everything that is bad, right? So my colleague also shared with you guys how do we mitigate some of this web application security risk, which is listed in the OWASP top 10, right? How do we provision a security policy and block some of these attacks, right? And all these things that was uh, shared is all delivered via a central console, where the application developers, the DevOps team, the network ops, the NetOps team, and the security ops team can all have the same visibility into have a single holistic unified view of what is going on in the environment. Okay, so today, moving on, right, we are also going to be leveraging that same central console to actually build upon by looking at advanced bot protection, whereby a lot of threats today are coming in from automated threats, bots, which that there are good bots and of course there are bad bots out there. And also we will be looking at how do we prevent layer 7 denial of service as well, right? Okay. Okay, so coming to this, right? Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there are always bots. There are few ways to look at it. There are good bots and there are bad bots. The good bots are the likes of Google bots, right, where they are crawling the internet, and they are actually indexing and putting your organizations page, right, at the top of the search, right, so that it gives you more exposure in terms of the reach to your customers, right? But on the other hand, a lot of attackers nowadays, they use automated bots to actually do things like reconnaissance, to try to find fault in your environment. Okay, so traditionally, when we look at security, it has always been looking around preventing um, preventing exploits at the application layer, right? Is more of vulnerability in terms of the app codes itself, right? So bots itself, they are different kind of threat because they actually abuse some of the functionality that you are creating at your application, right? For that is intended for the regular users, right? For as an example, bots will probably try to break into some of these accounts, right, by trying to guess username and password combinations. So you can't really just say that, oh, I deploy a traditional WAF, I block by IP sources to actually protect, right, because now they are impersonating a real user themselves, right? So you can see that by doing some of these things, right, they are able to do account takeovers and fraud, right, which whereby based on our studies, right, around 500,000 US dollars are actually lost annually by organizations due to credential stuffing attacks, right? And trying to prevent these bots today, right, is really a intensive work, right? Because there's every time you might discover a bad bot, and then that once the attacker knows that they sort of have been discovered, and then they will find another way to reattempt again, right? So there's only so much resources an organization would have in terms of battling against the threats that are coming in. Okay, and the impact of these bots, right, extend even beyond security, in the sense that they are also looking to create fraud, right, by initiating things like data breaches, right? So some of this, once they access a database, right, they will try to resell some of this information out there in the dark web to people who may be financially motivated, or has a motive to launch an attack against your organizations. Okay, so as I was mentioning earlier, right, the attackers, they are getting smarter and smarter. So what they are really doing is that they will continuously try to adapt and retool. So so it is not going to be something which is straightforward, because of it's not sort of like, there's no silver bullet in terms of trying to um, protect yourself against this attackers themselves. Okay, and moving on, right, when we look at it, right, when we look at the it's already hard enough to protect your internal data centers, right? Right now you have your environments across different locations, different sites, right? It could be a regional branch, it could be in your private data centers, right? In order for you to try and in order for you to try and mitigate this, itself, it will probably impact a lot of agility, because now you will need to ensure that your Google Cloud has got the same policy and posture as to what you have in your data center, and then you need to ensure that in Azure or AWS we also have the same level of governance as well, right? So when there are differing capabilities from um, uh, providers to providers, that is where you will start to notice that you can't um, you are unable to provide your business that agility and the time to market with the benefits of the cloud providers themselves. And next is, of course, you have different environments, right? How do you then again provide that end-to-end visibility for these users, right? Do you want to be managing multiple tool sets for different teams, or do you want to standardize an approach whereby all team members are looking at a single dashboard to deliver the application to your users today, and all this via a unified policy. Okay, so today where we are going to be focused on is going to be around the areas of DDoS mitigation as well as bot protection today. So the web application firewall and the API protection was covered in part 1. Okay, so looking into a bit more details in terms of stopping the bots today. Okay, so you will have on the left side, you will actually see that there's going to be the access methods, right, from your into your environment, which could be via a user accessing via a web app. It could be a JavaScript client, an API client, or even a mobile apps themselves, right? And how do you now differentiate whether are these so-called users who they claim to be, right? How do we know that they are humans versus bots? And on top of that, from a human perspective, right, are they a good human, or are they forming a part of a human click farm where they have like people that is that they have a team that is trying to mimic a large some think of it like a call center of a lot of fraudsters who are constantly clicking and trying to copy paste username and passwords to try to take over an account, right? One of your customers account, right? So all this, when they come in, right, we have different ways to actually leverage the bot defense capability that we have, whether you have a connector in your on-prem environment, such as F5 Big IP, right? Or you could even be leveraging a fully SaaS solution from F5, or even looking at integration with other CDNs, such as the likes of Akamai. Okay, so then once we have already detected what what will actually be good or bad, then only we will allow the traffic to go back into where the origin or the intended target users uh, target application will be. Okay, and all this is all real time, right? So we will actually be collecting the signals, and these signals will actually be processed within our cloud environment, and we are basically doing obfuscation of certain JavaScript uh, via JavaScript injection. Okay, and with this, right, we will be able to minimize the user friction in terms of it's not going to be always having uh, yourself to deploy things like capture to validate whether are these like legitimate users. Okay, so as I was mentioning earlier, this is actually a real use case from one of our customers, right, where you can actually see that the yellow color is actually the automated traffic, the automated traffic itself to that the attackers are actually trying to um, uh, come in with, right? They might be doing their reconnaissance attack, right? And the first point in time when we do a mitigation, we can actually see that they are trying to retool themselves, right? So you can actually see that, you know, there's a retooling detection, right? We are already blocking some of the attacks and they already picked up on it. So you can see that so you can actually see that the red color over here is where we have started the detection. And over here, once they know that, oh, it's already being detected as block, right? Now they will start to retool and try to, you know, attack again, right? And when we do another, and as the bot defense continues to help you to detect and mitigate, right? Then sooner or later they will actually give up and they will move on to another target, which is, you know, which could be your competitors, for example. Okay, so this thing is something that, you know, today and every single attacker will actually be doing. So this will, if you are doing this in a manual way today, you will have a lot of technical difficulties, and it is also very costly and time consuming, right? Because the attackers will just retool and come back and hit you again. Okay, so this is something that, you know, from F5 perspective, right? We are constantly seeing these things, and we are helping customers mitigate it with with minimum friction and minimal overhead to our customers and their organizations. Okay, all right. Moving on. So with our cloud, we actually have global data centers that is distributed all over the world, right? So we can actually, by default, layer 3 and layer 4, once you are on board with our distributed cloud, you will already get layer 3 and layer 4 DDoS protection already. Okay, so but there may be certain cases whereby, say, you want to connect your /24 and have it be protected by F5. That is also possible. So there are ways for us to do an always available or always on option. Always available meaning to say that at when you detect that you may be under attack, then you allow F5 to come in and do the blocking, right? Whereas always on is that, you know, you are always connected to F5, and F5 will always be there to protect you. Okay, so with that, that brings me to the end of my slides. So we'll move on to the demo. Okay, so in the demo architecture, so this is how it will look like. So we will have our users over here accessing this URL over here, which is zchew.f5demos.com, and basically this our XC is actually providing the protection to a backend origin pool over here. All right. So in this demo, I will be showing you guys two things, right? How do we enable the advanced bot detection and prevention, right? How do we see, you know, the things that I mentioned earlier regarding JavaScript obfuscation, how do we collect those signals? I'll show you in this demo, and then how do we detect and mitigate layer 7 denial of service attacks into your towards your applications. Okay, so that just give me a moment. Let me just fire up my tab. Okay, so currently, in the interest of time, so what I have actually done is that I have already created the origin pools that you can see over here. Okay, sorry, excuse me, guys. I think I might need to turn off my video because I've received note that the audio quality is a bit bad. So let me just turn off my video first. Okay, hopefully this is better. Okay, over here I have a front end pool which I have created. So let's just do a quick inspection of the of the origin servers. Okay, so this is the backend application, the server that we are trying to protect, right? And it is this is actually the backend application that we are trying to protect over here. Okay, so at the same time, I've also created the load balancer in the cloud, so we can inspect the configuration over here. Okay, so this is the origin pool that we had created earlier, right? And we can see over here that we have enabled the WAF, and it is advertised to the internet. So basically, and the bot defense right now is disabled. Okay, so basically you can actually access this for yourselves as well with this domain over here. Okay, so I have just a simple application. It's taking some time to load, so yeah. So this is a simple sample application whereby we can search for flights and all. Okay, as well as we can allow users to log in. Okay, so let us just quickly turn on and inspect the okay. So let us go to the user and the user sign in URL. So this is where the um, focus of the attackers will be to compromise a user account over here, right? So for example, I can just put okay. So let's just inspect the post request over here. Let me just expand this. Okay, okay. You can see over here there is nothing that has actually been encoded, that has actually been injected because there's no bot defense profile that has been attached to it. So what we are going to do right now is to enable that bot defense. Okay, go under security configuration. We enable this. So over here, you can select the region that you want to be deployed from. So in this case, I will select Asia as this is closest to us. Okay, so we will need to configure the endpoint which is the specific high value URLs that we want to protect, which in this case is the VIP sign-in, right? So we can just give it a name. Okay, since this is a login page, what we want to pick up on is actually a post method, right? If we go back to over here, we can see that this is actually a post request over here. Okay, okay. So the prefix that we want to be protecting is user/VIP sign in. Okay, so we append the headers. So apply, select apply. Okay, save and exit. Okay. All right. So sorry, I forgot to show you guys one thing as well. So if we copy this as a curl, you will basically be able to see that this is the request that is actually coming in. So with this, right, when you don't have any sort of like bot protection enabled, right, with this inputs over here, it is very easy for you to just write like a Python script, right, to actually try to initiate or launch a brute force attack against credential stuffing attack against your website. Okay, so now what we want to do is let's just try to access this again. So just go back and make sure that we have got the bot defense enabled. Over here, it's being configured. All right. So let's just okay. So right now, if you look at the payload over here, you will start to see there's a lot of new fields that has that has actually been created over here. So over here, you can see that there's this XA4VRH. Then you also get the rest of the, YP3QZ, etc. So these are all the JavaScript that we have injected into the website. And what we are also doing is that we are also collecting the signals related to the user's behavior over here. So with this itself, right, we are going to be doing the AI ML on the back end to actually decide whether is this a legitimate user or a illegitimate user. Okay, so yep. Okay, so if we look into it now, if we go back to our um, dashboard over here, okay, let's go to our okay. All right, so now we can actually see that there are already certain security events that has already been put up right now. Okay, so we can actually drill down by this bot activity over here. Okay, so you will actually be able to see what is the specific request that has actually come in via the from what I had done earlier, right? So there's actually a post request, etc., that has been sent in. Okay, so but earlier that is only showing you that we have already enabled and we are able to collect the signals. So what we want to do right now is to move on to blocking this request over here, right? So if we go into here, manage our configuration again. Okay, so you can see earlier we were only flagging the traffic, so I was still able to go through. Okay, so right now let's transition this to block. Okay, so apply, apply, save and exit. So what I'm going to do right now is that let's fire up the terminal. Okay, so let's just try to do a curl to the same URL, right, with the user name and password. So you can see here the requested URL was rejected. Please consult with the administrator. So this would actually be in line with what we had actually configured as a blocking policy earlier that we can see over here. Mitigation action is set to block. Okay, so now I'm going to move to my second demo, which is going to be on the detecting and mitigating the layer 7 DOS attacks. Okay, so over here currently, I already have a, let me just run a script. So let me just show you the dashboard from earlier. So earlier we had only, we only looked at the bot protection in terms of the um, so it will generate the security events that you can see over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is to um, load this specific application over here with a lot of requests, right? I'm just trying to flood it with layer 7 requests. Okay, so let me just go to here. 261. So I'm actually creating like 1,000 users and hitting, it's more of like trying to simulate like, from a single source that I'm actually trying to create 1,000 users and accessing to a specific URL itself. So let's go back to look at our dashboards over here. So you can see that the security events, which was from earlier just 4 events, has now gone up to 1.7K events, right? And you can see all this request that is coming in is get method, right? So from here itself, right, we let's say I go into this specific event under the security events itself. I can see that a sudden influx of traffic that is coming in, right? And I'm going to inspect over here, and I will be able to see that this is the specific source which is giving me some of this problem over here, right? So let's just try to take another request and see if it matches, right? So we can basically see all the source IPs are actually the same source IPs. So what I'm going to do now is that um, um, with this knowledge, right? What I want to do is to actually now create a policy where I can actually block this specific IP. I mean, this is a simplistic view to actually show how we can actually block this. Of course, as you move into production environment, right, there are other ways for us to do it rather than the rudimentary way of using IP. Okay, so what we need to do is to go back to our load balancers over here, manage configuration. Okay, let us edit the configuration. So again, we go under security configuration over here, and let's expand the advanced fields, and we can actually see there is a DDoS mitigation rules that you can see over here. So we go under configure, add an item. So let's say this is a webinar blocked by IP. Okay, and the IP source is this. Okay, so let's apply. Okay, and apply. Save and exit. Okay, so let us just quickly go back to our security dashboard, right? We can see that so we can see that there was about 23,000 events that was actually generated, right? And all of it is coming from Malaysia right now. Yeah, okay. So now that we have put a policy in place, right? What I'm going to do is that I'm just going to rerun this script again, right? So let's have it run for a little while. and let's start to refresh. So under the security events itself, as well as the uh, uh, yeah. So now you can see it starting to come in. There's actually a service policy security event over here. If we click into it and look at it, right, this is basically the same source IP that was trying to, continuously perform a DDoS on me, right? And I have actually set this to deny based on the service policy that was actually the service policy that I had created and attached to my public load balancer earlier. Okay, so that's all I have in terms of my demo today. So yeah, back over to you, Imbarash. Okay. So one more thing that I want to share with you guys as well. Earlier, Imbaraj mentioned about the free the $200 credits, right? So it will basically be for the individual account where you can get started with some of these services on F5 distributed cloud, and you also have about another $175 for some of the add-ons for some of the other services such as CDN services, etc. Right. So some of the other services you can actually use the extra credits is for you to play around with the other services that we have on uh, our distributed cloud, and this is valid for 1 month. Okay. So I think we can move back into a Q&A session.
All right. Thank you, Zen. Thank you for the presentation. And guys, those of you who are tuning in, we have 87 people tuning in today's session. Any questions? If you have any questions, you can put it into our Q&A tab, and either our team members or the speaker himself will answer your questions live. We still have a bit of time. Any questions? Anything related to the presentation today, or even something general, anything about F5 or their products and services, or something specific to today's presentation. If you have any questions, do put it in the Q&A tab. Right? All good? Right. Zen, you're still here with us?
Yes, I am.
All right. I think we have a question from Alex. How about UX-less behavior detection since we can't inject JS? You want to take that question?
How about UX-less behavior detection since we can't inject JS? Okay. On this question, I might not have the answer immediately for Alex, so I think we will need to take it offline with Alex. I might also be able to see if my other team members would want to jump in as well if they have the answer, if they know this as well.
All right. Oh, I think he corrected this question. Sorry, I mean for API. Do you get the
Ah,
question?
okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. Your question is around how can we provide this bot protection for API based applications? Is that correct?
No response from Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex, maybe you can explain your question further in the chat. You just put a chat message, just elaborate your question a bit so it's easier for Zen to answer you. Oh, I think there's another message. Yes, Alex said yes.
Okay, so on the APIs itself, right, we can actually do rate limiting on each API. So we for the bot protection, if you are looking at the bot protection, right, that is not as applicable for the API based applications, right? So for the API protection, that was actually covered in the first part, where we can discover the APIs, right, and then you can apply the rate limiting onto the APIs itself. So I don't have the an API app at the moment, but over here, if let me just share my screen again. Okay, so over here, if you go to your HTTP load balancers, manage configuration. Okay, security configuration. Over here, if you can see Alex, we can actually enable the API level rate limiting over here. Okay, so once you define your API, you can assign the API rate limits to it. So for example, if you have a specific, I see that you're from IP88. If let's say you're during you might have a initiator from, let's say, a third party website, such as say Zen.com, which is which subscribes to iPay services for the as a payment gateway, right? So you can actually limit and rate limit how many requests that I can actually fire to your APIs. Okay.
Right. Okay, we have another question from Mohammad Afiq. How does F5 differentiate human and bot behavior? Hmm.
Okay, so very good question, Afik. So first off, right, some of the bot technologies out there, they won't be able to respond to a the JavaScript injection itself already. So that's already one way that we can actually block the differentiate between humans and bots, right? But maybe some of the more advanced bots, right, they will be able to sort of like mimic human behavior through via mouse movements, or certain actions, right, that they can do. So within that the JavaScript that we inject, right, we are also collecting other signals in there, right? So for example, when let me just share my screen again, so I can show you like what is classified as a human behavior generally, right? So what I will do is that sometimes I will go to cancel and exit, right? And I want to click on a service. I will go to let's say I go to my security, and then I will probably browse around, and then I will go to my load balancers. So I have certain very random mouse movements. Whereas for some of the bots itself, right, even if they try to mimic a human, right, basically it is very de- their movements are quite static, in the sense that they will go very quickly, right, from load balancer, go to security tab over here, and it's like, there's like, when I use my trackpad as well, sometimes it's not a direct straight line movement, and it's not going to be like fast, right, especially if I have to scroll down to say an API management level, right? So over here, that is another sort of like signal that we can actually collect to actually see whether um, uh, are they a human or are they a bot as well. And also based on some other actions, such as a lot of continuously control C control V onto the username field and password field. So some of these are all the signals and telemetry that we're actually collecting.
All right. There's another question from Mohammad Ismail. How do you validate API security?
Ismail, can you elaborate further in terms of what you mean by validate API security?
Can we look at the answer, the comment?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks, Ewan.
Yeah, I think Evan answered, right? Because
Mm.
so yeah, Evan is our speaker for the previous webinar, the first part of the series where he spoke about API security. Yeah, so I guess he has an answer for that since he covered that topic. Right? Okay. Let's look at other questions. Any other questions from the audience? Right. There's one from Zulkarnain. Can you selectively block bots by their type and source? For example, I don't want Google bots, scraper bots, etc.
Yes. The short answer to that is yes. Zulkarnain?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is something you can do from the dashboard you showed earlier, right?
Yes.
All right.
So
Okay,
because
cool.
some of the bots, such as scraper bots or Google bots itself, they already have some of their signatures ready. So without going into like the advanced bot protection, right? It is something that the signature based bots can already provide that first level of filtering as well.
All right. Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions, guys? To the audience, like I said, you can put all your questions in the Q&A. Uh, try to avoid putting it in the live chat. But do you have any questions in the live chat? Uh, is that a question? Oh, I think Ken has a question. Any good resources to study more in depth on the security portion of our application? Could be book or a series of videos or even training course. Anything you can recommend, Zen?
I would say that it would differ from industry to industry in terms of books and all that you may want to recommend, right? Like different industries may have their own set of security standards in terms of the type of segregation, right? For example, maybe in manufacturing, the applications for the plant system, it cannot be exposed to the internet. So that is the first way to look at it, and then how you can actually build on top, right? Whereas for say financial institutions, maybe you have PCI DSS compliance, so you have to probably refer to those standards to say that how do I determine my segmentation and zoning, and from there I can decide in terms of my organization um, policies, right? The policies that has been set by the IT security and governance team. What would be the bare minimum um, security functionalities that needs to be there.
And then for those of you, those of the users, right, like who choose to use the F5 solutions, what
Mhm.
is the best way for them to learn up how to do this, right? Do you have like a tutorial section or any kind of
Ah,
like training programs or courses that you provide?
yeah. So F5, our F5 team, the our global solution architects. So they post a lot of videos and security like what is going on in terms of threat landscapes, etc. So we actually have that on our YouTube channel, on F5 Dev Central, as well as F5 itself. So as starters, if you are keen to know more, that would actually be besides the product data sheets, right? So that would actually be a good place to start, right? Where they will show a lot of like in-depth demo, like what I have actually shown today as well.
All right. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Learning through YouTube is always way better, right, than just reading up manuals and manuals of how to do. I learn a lot of things through YouTube. Definitely a great way to watch tutorials and demos and learn
Mhm.
how to use something. So yeah, guys, head over to F5's YouTube channels if you want to learn more about their products and solutions. And also, I'm sure there's some amazing tips and tricks about, especially about security, right? Cybersecurity topics. Any other questions? We are getting very close to the end of the session. Any other questions from the audience? We have 89 people tuning in today. Right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us and staying till the end of the session. And if we have any more questions, oh, just a thumbs up from Judin. I guess he enjoyed the session. Right. No other questions. All right, guys. So if there's no more questions from the audience, I would like to thank Zhen, our speaker for today. He's a solutions architect from F5. Amazing sharing from him. And also thank you so much for answering all the questions from our audience.